Welcome to From Our Perspective. Today, I'm joined by civil litigation partner Boyd Rolfson. We'll discuss a case that involves short-term rental restrictions in the mountains. Our client has a vacation home and hoped to make money listing it as a rental property. Instead, the client lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in potential rental income and had trouble trying to sell the property. Boyd, thank you so much for joining me today. Tell me more about our client and why they reached out to you.
Yes, this was a client that came to us who purchased a property some years ago in a mountain ski town. Purchased it as an investment property. Client lives out of state for the purpose of being able to make money during the ski season and rent it at that premium rental rate. We'll come to find out they'd purchased a property that had a covenant restriction that specifically restricted short-term rentals on this property, which translated is they're not able to rent it under Airbnb or VRBO, which is very popular among vacationers and skiers. So they couldn't use their property for the purpose which they had rented it for.
And why was this property covenant so unique in this situation?
Well, this one was unique because it wasn't a community-wide covenant. It only applied to this specific property and one that the town had placed on this property under a previous owner under a deal to grant them a permit, allowed them to remodel the property and place this covenant on the property. That's very unique. Usually covenants apply to the whole neighborhood or a whole area or whole town. So it was unique to have one property with this specific restrictive covenant.
Mm-hmm. And how was the covenant being interpreted then by each party in this situation?
Well, one of the problems was the interpretation of the covenant, because the town really used it as an opportunity to be very restrictive and to require the owner to submit stats, to submit regular reports about the people that were renting this property. And one of the covenant went on to say that those people that rented the property, they would allow short-term if they worked full-time in the town where they lived. So they had to have a full-time job. Therefore, they were requiring them to submit reports on employment records and very invasive information for the people who are renting it. And that's how the town interpreted it. Of course, the covenant was a little ambiguous, and of course our client and us, and we did not interpret it in the same way and saw it as they had the opportunity to monitor once in a while, but no required regular reporting of who rented the property.
How much were the fines and the estimated financial loss for our client for not being able to rent the property?
Yeah, so not being able to rent the property, the client really would lose out on the prime ski season, which the property is in a ski town in Colorado, would lose out all that revenue during the ski season because they couldn't rent it out in short-term amounts. So they would lose hundreds of thousands each year in potential rentals. In addition to that, for violation of the covenant, the town attempted to fine $100 a day for every day that they were in violation of that covenant. So the losses and the fines really could stack up for a client.
Sounds like it definitely added up. So after negotiations, what was the settlement that was reached?
So ultimately, negotiating and working with the town, with our client, we ultimately reached a settlement where our client would pay the town a one-time payment, not a large payment, but a fair payment, and the town agreed to remove the restrictive covenant. And so it's very beneficial for our client to be able to rent that, or as he planned, to resell the property because the value had really jumped. One of the key values of the property is whether or not an investor would be able to rent out the property. So removing this restrictive covenant allowed him to reach out to investors willing to pay much more for the property with this restrictive covenant removed.
What advice would you give to anyone who's considering purchasing a property and they want to use it as a rental?
Yes, any potential investor purchasing a property really should do the due diligence to find out what potential covenants, especially those covenants that restrict their usage on the property. And those covenants can come from a homeowners association or condo association. It can come from the city covenants or town, or it can come from the county. So really doing your background and research, knowing what you can use the property for, will save you a lot of of potential losses in the future. And that's something we can help to interpret what those covenants allow purchasers to do and to use their home for.
Great advice, Boyd. Thanks for sharing your perspective.
You bet.
If you are dealing with strict short-term rental laws and in a dispute with local government, our team can help. Reach out to us for a case assessment on our website or give us a call.